Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are back into the crucible that is the annual meeting. Yes, we are wading through the miasma of nonsense, new light, and bad propaganda. Let's get straight away into it. Last time we were cut a little bit short because we did have a technical difficulty. So I was hoping to cover that whole end of the annual meeting in that last episode, but because of some technical difficulties, we're going to finish covering it right now. So last time we checked in and Kenneth Cook was talking, we were so bored that we just ended up playing charades. That was very funny. If you missed it, that's because you didn't watch to the end of the video. So you can go back and check out that video if you'd like to play charades with me. Anyway, with all of that being said, don't forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We just hit 4,000 subscribers. Yeehaw! Woo! It feels very good to see all of the growth. So let us get straight into it. ZZ's back there. He's just eating a little bit. ZZ, do you want to say hi? Yeah, he's a cat, so what else did you expect? Okay, let's do this thing. Alright, so because that Kenneth Cook talk was properly boring, he was going on these parables, it didn't really matter, and we kind of could expect that, because anytime new light's going to be given, and it's not from one of, I think, Stephen Lett, Tony Morris, or David Splain, they're not going to give any of the other governing body members, I don't think, or at least it doesn't seem that it's very often, the job of explaining any of that big major new light or anything like that. So with all of that being said, let's jump into the next section.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Cook, for that excellent review of warnings that we need to keep in our minds. Well, did you capture all of the fine points of those 3 talks? We're now going to pass out the exam sheets. No, just kidding. But if you would like to review those talks carefully, and we know you will, guess what? They are going to be presented to the Worldwide Brotherhood in the January monthly edition of JW Broadcasting. So you all will have the opportunity to carefully review your notes to make sure you got all the fine points in those wonderful, wonderful talks.
It's so funny here that he is able to joke about, okay, are you ready? We're about to pass out the exams. Because that's exactly the Watchtower that I grew up in. Yes, you guys know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the written review. So when I was a kid, that was like just kind of hanging around. And then when I was very young, it switched over into the oral review, and then they got rid of the whole thing altogether. But my goodness, do you guys, taking a trip down memory lane, I think we should do a whole video, maybe a whole skit about the written review. This really reminded me of it. So look out for that in the future, because I definitely think that would be pretty damn funny to do. Anyway, yeah, so he's just kind of chopping it up, joking with the audience, but at the end of the day, when you are giving a presentation, when you are giving a talk, and at the end of it, if one of the most, I think this is a fair statement, but one of the most knowledgeable about what the Watchtower doctrine is, if you want to get one of the most knowledgeable people, it will be a governing body member. They are the gatekeepers of the entire religion and the theology that comes out of it. And he was like, did you get all that? I don't know if he's admitting, like, yeah, I could hardly even keep up with what was being said. But at the end of the day, when you are presenting information, it should be understandable to your audience. Like, your audience needs to understand what the hell you're talking about. Here we have a case where they're just coming out, Kenneth Cook gives his presentation, finishes his talk, everyone claps, and then his contemporary governing body member is like, yeah, are you guys ready to take the test? Well, I'm sure you didn't understand a word of that, and you'll need a refresher course. Now, that's not to say that you have to be able to make every single point stand out, so that way someone remembers everything you said. No, we're not saying that. But I doubt I doubt if you asked most in the audience, hey, could you give me 3 points that Kenneth Cook talked about? I'm guessing, yeah, it was some parables in Matthew and why we need to keep on the watch and be always ready and loyal to the organization. That is what is going to come out of most people's mouths. Anyway, I did find this little interchange or this little segue pretty interesting.
Well, the governing body has asked that a brief update about the construction of the Ramapo headquarters facility be shared with you at this time. Now, despite the pandemic, we have clearly seen Jehovah's hand on the Ramapo project this year. So please enjoy the following visual update.
Okay, this is something that I haven't really talked about yet, but I would say it might be the number one commented or comment that I hear the absolute most of anything, and that's about, aren't Jehovah's Witnesses building a movie production studio in New York? And here we're going to see a little presentation of how that work is going and some of the concepts behind it. But I haven't really talked about this, and I think now would be a great time for a classic Wally rant. If someone was an ordinary Jehovah's Witness and they started on a building project, let's say they were trying to build their dream house, right? So they buy some property on the water and they find an architect and they work with him and they get designs, they get the permits, and they do all of this stuff, and then they finally build, and then they finish, and anyway, they finally are able to build their house, or they're planning. What do you think the elders would have to say about that? What do you think that members of the congregation would say about that? Well, how do you think that person would be viewed? Let's say they spent $1.5 million building their dream home on the water. That person would absolutely get blasted. They would get blasted so hard. If they were an elder or something, they might even be removed as an elder because they weren't putting spiritual things first, or they were planning for their future. So if someone is going to build their dream house and spend money that doesn't necessarily need to be spent, but hey, you've worked hard, I'm going to do this now, I've saved, blah, 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 right? They have they're in their right to do that, and good for you if you're able to. But they would completely get obliterated by the negative comments. And I don't know of anyone personally that ever did that necessarily. Yeah, I can't actually think of anyone, so maybe it just doesn't even happen. But here we have the reverse scenario. Well, what if Watchtower spends years and years and years planning and building and spending a lot of money? Not hard-earned from other people. Nothing they did. Well, I guess maybe they invested it correctly. But anyway, they're doing the exact same thing. And they're saying, look, it's evidence of Jehovah's blessing. I think if I was still in the Watchtower, I would definitely try and use this to my advantage. If I was a Jehovah's Witness right now and I saw this, I'd be like, okay, so I don't actually have to go out and service. I don't actually have to pretend like the end is around the corner. I can go ahead with all of my building plans or whatever it might be. And I don't have to dedicate all of my resources and all of my time to this. I think it's very, very, very funny. Now, obviously, they're going to say, well, it's different because, this is helping to further pure worship, and it's, helping to the world to see God's kingdom. But I think, a person could rationalize the same way, if you're really honest. Well, maybe this is going to be the bunker. We can all hunker down here during the Great Tribulation. Anyway, let's take a look at Ramapo, but I haven't really talked about it. Sorry for this long precursor. So let's get in and see what they have to say about their building project.
Before the main project begins, contractors have already been assisting to repair and strengthen an existing stone-faced bridge on the road into the site. When completed, the restoration of this structure will serve as a beautiful feature of the property. More important, Jehovah has greatly blessed the efforts to work through the planning process with the town of Ramapo. That process is now in the final stages of obtaining the necessary permits to start the large new construction project. In the first quarter of 2022, Jehovah willing, contractors will start clearing the site in preparation for earth moving, installation of underground utilities, and readying the locations where the first buildings will be constructed. This in itself will take many months, and we look to Jehovah to bless this key phase that, when concluded, will open up the project for many volunteers to come and share in the work.
So maybe this is just me, but I don't remember them talking about using contractors before. Usually it's volunteers through and through, I thought, or maybe that's just the impression that I have. But here we're having them clearly say, no, we have this initial site work that's all getting done to help build this highway of holiness. We're hiring people to do it. We're not using, brothers and sisters or their construction companies or anything like that. And then once this initial phase is done, then we'll open it up to volunteers. So that's a little bit interesting, but oh my, and I can already tell you, we are going to hear this evidence of Jehovah's blessing, Jehovah's direction, Jehovah's guidance. Plug in whatever phrase you wish to plug in right here. But how weak all of these examples are going to be. Maybe I shouldn't say this now, but we'll just kind of prep ourselves for it. How weak all of these examples are going to be of, this is Jehovah's blessing. I got a building permit. This is Jehovah's blessing. We built a bridge. This is Jehovah's blessing. We cleared some trees. This is Jehovah's blessing. We found a contractor to do these things. Their version of Jehovah's blessing can literally be whatever they want. I bet if Tony Morris is constipated and he finally takes a shit, he would be like, oh, thank God. He would see that as evidence of Jehovah's blessings. Oh, here we go.
Much forethought and work has gone into the arrangements needed for feeding, housing, and providing temporary office spaces for all such willing brothers and sisters. The design team is fully engaged in preparing the construction documents. The drawings for some buildings are well advanced. Others are in the concept stage. No doubt, seeing these concept images of the future Ramapo facility is exciting and encouraging to all of you.
He's pretty loose here with the phrase no doubt, because he's like, no doubt this is exciting and encouraging. No, it's confusing. An ordinary witness watching this will be confused. They're looking at this giant complex to produce videos, and you think, okay, why is this being produced when the organization is like speed running, doing more videos than they've ever done before? They have a massive amount of property all over the world. Why do we need this? And it's comfort. It's comfort and ease. I think it's just a consolidation process where they're just going to keep consolidating and yeah. Anyway, we will see exactly how all of this shakes out. So let's look at the project.
Well, with all of you, we continue to pray that Jehovah will bless this very exciting theocratic project. Throughout the we have felt Jehovah's loving care as we've received helpful direction just at the right time. Please listen and watch as those who work in the Coordinators Committee office recount how events unfolded with the and how Jehovah has guided matters throughout this time.
In January of 2020, we started seeing news reports about a disease outbreak. Now, at the time, it seemed localized and was not of global concern. But a short time later, the numbers were going up as the began to spread. Borders were closing and airports were shutting down.
On January 22nd, the coordinators committee received their first letter from a branch about the letter was from the Korea branch. Soon after that, we wrote to all branches in and around Asia and included guidelines on what to do if they had an outbreak in their territory.
We had dealt with local before, but nothing like this on a worldwide scale. It was clear that the virus was going to affect almost every aspect of our theocratic operations. And during those first few months of 2020, the organization would be faced with a huge amount of decisions.
So we are going to jump into how the Jehovah's Witnesses dealt with the situation that the entire world dealt with. And no doubt we're going to have a few buzzwords that I can't actually have on my YouTube channel. Something that I wasn't aware of, but recently I have found out. So if you ever hear any random bleeping or muting, it's because very particular words in a very particular order will get you banned on YouTube or have your video taken down and a strike against your channel. So we're not going to be saying any of those naughty words, and we're going to be keeping it all PG and clean. These are 100% the things that I think are right about YouTube, and 100% the things that I think are right about free speech in our country as a whole. So this is not me doing some passive aggressive complaining thing. No, this is me fully accepting that certain words should never be spoken. Honestly, why stop at words? Maybe we should make it about books or movies or people. You know what? Let's take cancel culture to its logical conclusion and cancel everything that a few people don't like to hear about. So, if this doesn't get me banned, I don't know what will. Anyway, if you hear any random mutes or bleeps, you guys know why. I didn't mean to make this a Wally rant. Stop. Help me, please.
You have to realize that this was catching us right in the middle of our activities. Our schedule for the whole year had already been planned. We had shepherding visits to branches, regional conventions, even special conventions. And now we had Gilead graduation and memorial coming up right in front of us. What were we going to do?
Okay, so every single person on the entire planet had to deal with all of these exact same questions. Watchtower is not unique in this predicament they found themselves in. Everyone had plans, everyone had ideas, everyone had things they wanted to do, and now all of a sudden they're like, well, what am I going to do? And we continue to have the exact same issues and problems. You might be thinking, hey, I finally can go to this play or this show, and oh, how great it's going to be. And the day before you go, it might get canceled. It's just how the world has changed fundamentally over the last few years, and everyone's had to deal with it. So if they're trying to pluck anything that makes them seem unique or special, or like, it's not a big, oh, well, we had conventions and the memorial and all this things planned. Oh my goodness. Okay, so did everyone else. Anyway, I don't want them to try and suck anyone in with their sensationalism. Sensationalism. I said it right one of those times. Just edit that in of me saying it right over the whole thing, and then it'll make me look cute.
One of the first things the governing body decided was that the coordinators committee would become the central channel of communication regarding.
Meanwhile, the graduation of the 148th class of Gilead was in 2 weeks. Should we have guests come? Should there be a live audience? There was not much time to make these decisions. However, after prayer and discussion, the entire governing body decided not to have a live audience for the Gilead graduation that weekend. That was unheard of.
So I honestly don't know when some videos are coming out. So this might be before, or it might be after, but I have a video coming out called The Governing Body's Biggest Lie. Maybe this will be actually after that's already released and you guys will know about it. But anyway, what I wanted to focus in on in this particular clip is how he said the entire governing body. The entire governing body came to this conclusion. Is that a hint? Is that suggesting that sometimes the entire governing...
Oh my God!
The entire governing body isn't in agreement? Is that suggesting that sometimes they might have something that they fundamentally disagree about? Now, I go into this further in this other video, so it's either a non-spoiler or something to build anticipation, or it's something you've already seen. So maybe I don't even know why I added this in, but I did, and that fell, so that was pretty funny. I guess you guys can watch me put it back up. That'll be content, right? You guys watching me do stuff, is that content? I don't know. You can see my fancy water for the day. Hi, Z. So these are just like foam. In case you guys were wondering, these are just sound insulation things. So just helps keep the echoes and stuff out of the room. So reverb is at a absolute minimum, and it's an absolute unit. So how are we doing today? You guys doing good? Anything exciting? What was the biggest or coolest or most hype gift you got during Christmas? Comment below. I think that's the end of that tea. That is not enough. I had 4 pieces before and fell off. Almost. What should we do, JW Thinkers? What shall we do, JW Thinkers? How are we going to fix this problem? Should we just go and get some more tape? Should we actually find the real clips? Is this going to be a whole clip later?
Oh my God!
If you thought this bit was short, it just got a little bit longer. That's what she said. Haha! I'm still making jokes.
Oh my God!
Alright, well, we are going to do repair cam, and if anything interesting is said during this particular segment of the annual meeting, then I will stop and talk about it. But you guys can get a little idea into my personal creative process, and that is being generally distracted, kind of sort of listening to what Watchtower has to say, and then making you guys smile and laugh about the observations that I have. Yes, it's an incomplete formula. Yes, that's probably not even what the formula is, but like the Krabby Patty secret formula, it is a mystery. So let's get into it. What are we getting into? I can't even hardly remember. I think we're talking about... Oh, yeah, we're talking about the thing that we can't say. Okay, here we go. We're playing the video now, and we're beginning construction cam. Just so you guys know what I'm doing. I got 2 options here. So this is like a little bracket. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it like bends like this, and so then the foam thing hooks into it, if that makes any sense, and this connects to the wall, which I'm not entirely certain how good that's going to be, but I do have this 3M double-sided tape looking ass thing, so we'll see if that is adhesive enough, and maybe I'll just put that on the wall with that. So that's my goal. Anyway, let's do repair cam and see what Watchtower has to say about the thing we can't talk about. Not bitter.
The next thing we needed to figure out was whether to lock down headquarters at Bethel. I clearly remember it was a Friday night, March 13th. We were getting reports of cases in the congregations around Bethel. And we also knew that the Bethelites would be going out to their congregation and other activities over the weekend. If we were going to do something, we needed to do it quickly.
We called each member of the governing body and explained the situation, and all were unanimous that we should lock down Bethel immediately.
So within the hour, a message went to the entire headquarters and United States Bethel family to stay in.
So this is another instance where you have, and we were all united. Again, kind of a teaser. I don't know which one's going to be released first, but how interesting that they are comfortable saying yes, and we were all unanimous in that decision, because the perception from a ordinary Jehovah's Witness is that, well, yeah, you guys are always like in unison. You guys are always making sure that you have unanimous decisions. But we have, at the very least, an indication that that might not be true all of the time.
If you were out, to return to Bethel immediately.
Sometime later, we learned that there were some at Patterson. If we had moved ahead, potentially, we could have spread through the whole Bethel family. We really felt Jehovah's protective hand.
The same weekend as the Gilead graduation, the Memorial Invitation campaign was scheduled to begin. And so branches were asking, is it safe to go door to door and to distribute invitations? What if we can't meet in our kingdom halls?
As it had spread in many countries, it became evident that we needed to suspend the public ministry. This was a very serious decision.
I do find it quite interesting that he calls this a very interesting decision. And they had the branches writing in or calling in or email, whatever they contact each other, asking, hey, what should we do? So when there is a global crisis, when the whole world, as it were, is falling apart, what do these people do? What is their first protocol that they follow? They call the mothership. They get the red telephone out, and they pick it up, and it goes to a direct line to the governing body, and they say, what do we do now? And even Tony Morris is like, yeah, it was a tough decision that we have to make. But let's step back here as rational people and ask ourselves, was it a decision? Did Watchtower have the option of postponing their work? Did they have the option of saying, no, we're actually going to be in defiance to a government regulation, and we are going to continue with our work as it says in the Bible? No chance. There is a 0% chance that they would ever endanger their vast real estate portfolio for making a stand for continuing their true worship. Yes, Daniel, he was faced, in the Bible, Daniel was faced with being thrown in a burning furnace. So he was burned alive and throwing into a pit of lions to go mano a mano with a lion. And he kept up with his spiritual routine. He said, no, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue praying. Now, I'm not saying that Jehovah's Witnesses should have kept meeting together. I'm not saying they should have continued on their preaching work. I'm not saying any of those things, especially with what is going on in the world and just protecting people in general. But I do find it interesting to sort of make that comparison. Anyway, let's continue and see how this is going.
But when we prayerfully analyzed the situation, we realized we would not be showing respect for the sanctity of life or love of neighbor if we continued house to house. Our preaching work shifted to letter writing and telephone witnessing, and what a huge witness has been given in this way.
It was amazing to me personally when I saw how quickly the brothers could adapt to using Zoom, phone witnessing, letter writing, and instead of it being a huge setback for the work, it was almost as though the work even moved ahead.
We were also having to deal with what to do about our kingdom halls and our meetings.
Initially,
Sell them all.
some of the brothers were thinking, maybe we could just simply watch the pre-recorded meetings on JW Stream. Well, while that's an excellent provision, if we were going to do this for a long time, it would be wonderful to use a tool that would allow the brothers and sisters to come together virtually, to be able to interact and have that interchange of encouragement. We knew that a few branches had already started using Zoom for congregation meetings, and we wondered, could this tool be used for congregation meetings globally?
This is very interesting because I think I talked about it in one of the other videos about how they don't invent the technology that they simultaneously take credit for adapting to. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but anyway, we'll move past that. And let's look at a really interesting, fascinating thing that they say here. They have something called JW Stream. So their God-given technology, is available, and people were asking, so are we going to switch to JW Stream? And yet, the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing deity of space and time gave you insufficient technology to get the job done. Here we have an example of Watchtower having a technology that is insufficient for the job they need to do, so they turn to a worldly, a satanic, apostate propaganda lie burned to a crisp like a hot dog at Armageddon. Yeehaw! Let's go! Slap my knee! We're gonna use Zoom. I find this so interesting that they would openly admit, yeah, we have, JW Stream, people were asking about it, but we preferred to use Zoom. And they're going to congratulate themselves. Like, we don't have to ask ourselves, well, do you think? Wait and see if they we already know. They're going to congratulate themselves for, using Zoom. Yet they had a technology that could broadcast the meetings, and they didn't use it. I find this so interesting because it's a counter, I suppose, to the claims that they make about Jehovah's direction in all of this. Because if Jehovah was directing the organization, why wouldn't he see this coming? Why wouldn't he know that everything was going to be shifted online when the paradigm of the entire planet changed? So you have this fundamental paradigm shift of how human beings operate on planet Earth. Yes, that's how big this time, our last few years, has been. And you would think that the God of the universe, who's using his one true organization, would have prepared them for this. Well, he kind of prepared them for this, but he did a little COA and made sure that a worldly satanic organization developed the sufficient technology to get the job done. This might be the most interesting thing that I've heard yet on this entire it is a broadcasting, but in this annual meeting.
We asked those branches for their recommendations on how we could use this tool further. We got their comments, we did some testing, and then the governing body approved the global use of Zoom for meetings.
At the same time, though, the coordinators committee urgently wanted to help those congregations to arrange dignified Zoom meetings. And so within a week, technical and theocratic guidelines were released to all congregations.
And shortly after that, tens of thousands of Zoom licenses were purchased and then provided to many congregations as part of the disaster relief arrangement.
However, not all publishers could use Zoom due to lack of internet.
So in the days leading up to the campaign, the governing body provided direction to all branches on how to handle those exact situations. They also announced that the memorial talk itself would be made available on jw.org. So one branch wrote in and asked if they could use television and radio broadcasting. And we thought, that's a good idea. Let's try it. Once we saw how well it worked in that country, television and radio were approved for all branches in Africa only 2 days before the memorial.
how thrilling it was for many friends in Africa to find out, even moments before the broadcast began, that they would be able to commemorate the memorial simultaneously with their brothers and sisters throughout the country.
To have the memorial without being able to meet together was so different for all of us. Can you imagine? For the 2021 memorial, there was an all-time peak of 21,367,603.
We finally get, I know we've been blueballed for so long, and we finally get the actual number of memorial attendees, and it's over 21,000 people. How cool is that? Oh, I cut myself. Whoops. I am bleeding.
Oh my God!
My hand is bleeding. See, this is the type of effort that goes into the channel. At the very beginning of this whole shenanigan of the annual meeting, they sort of alluded to, oh, well, you'll have to wait till the right time till you can actually find out the total number. Now, explaining that number, why it's an all-time high, first off, there is a absolute possibility that people like me, ex-witnesses, which it might not be a lot of people, but I think it could potentially be maybe a few thousand, if not 10,000 people that are just there for shits and giggles. Maybe it's even more than that, because I attended. I'm part of this figure that he's mentioning. Also, you have a world life-changing event. Well, not necessarily an event, but a situation that is changed the world fundamentally. Of course, that's going to bring in all the people that previously were on the fence, haven't done any research about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but are just inactive. A lot of those people are going to be drawn to the memorial. Anytime a big event happens like that, it's always going to follow. So, yeah, I just don't think that that particular statistic is entirely compelling. And I think it's more interesting to look at some of the other statistics that are coming through, especially since 2015. Now the organization is, can we even call it treading water, or are they officially drowning now because they can't even keep up with the standard birth-death ratio? So anyway, we've covered all of that other stuff in a previous video. So let's get into some more action, which I will have 100% of my attention because the sound panel board thing is up and running. This video is so scuffed. Help me, please.
Clearly, we have seen Jehovah's blessing on these arrangements.
While all these new arrangements were being made at a rapid pace, the usual work of the Coordinators Committee office didn't stop because of we still had to deal with the King of the North persecuting our brothers. We still had disasters and many other things to contend with.
In fact, we handled twice as many disasters in the 2020 service year in the middle of than we did in 2018. On a daily basis, we saw clear evidence that we are living in the last days.
We had to come up with guidelines to help branches determine what aspects of relief work could be postponed, and at the same time ensure that urgent or necessary work went ahead safely. While there's no doubt that the complicated disaster relief efforts considerably, it was so faith-strengthening to see that the governing body refused to allow those complications to prevent them from caring for our brothers.
We've been building up to this moment. I think, especially because I've been watching more Jehovah's Witness videos and Watchtower propaganda over the last few weeks and months, it has come to this, where Watchtower no longer is happy with saying Jehovah provided. They don't want to say, yes, and look at the evidence that Jehovah provided. Yes, they are saying that. Now we're to the point where they're directly saying governing body. And the governing body was determined to not let this. if that clip, I'll play it again right here.
It was so faith-strengthening to see that the governing body refused to allow those complications to prevent them from caring for our brothers.
So he's just congratulating. He's putting forth the governing body member in a place where my understanding, which is pretty well-rounded, I would like to think, about the Watchtower. My understanding is if you were playing Mad Libs with Wally, like, hey, Watchtower Mad Libs, which name do you put in here? I would put in governing body to be funny, but because I would know that they're going to say, well, Jehovah made sure people were taken care of. But I would have been surprised at this. I would have been shocked that they just come out and say, the governing body is the one that makes sure that we're taken care of. It's this amalgamation. It is taking all of these constituent parts. Yes, it's been building for a long time, but here we are, where they are replacing Jehovah. The governing body is just flat out replacing God, and it's not a credit. I mean, they're crediting him at other points, but just them approving this statement or this little testimonial that this guy is giving is clear evidence, in my opinion. It is clear evidence that the governing body is okay, or is becoming more comfortable at the very least with being talked about in unison with God, at being equated to or taking the position that would have been previously occupied by God and insert governing body. I found this to be very mind-blowing in a certain sense. I mean, obviously, if you've never been a witness, it's probably the most mundane statement you've ever heard in your life. But to us that have endured the doldrums of the Watchtower organization, we know, yes, we understand how infuriating this is.
In addition to the impact these disasters had on our brothers, in some countries, our brothers couldn't even get enough food for their daily needs. This could have been because of government restrictions, supply issues, or other circumstances that wouldn't allow the brothers to work. Literally, the branches had to arrange to provide their daily bread.
Branches were encouraged to establish disaster relief committees to care for the needs on a local level. Reminders were provided to help families try to prepare a reserve of food, if at all possible, in case the situation became worse.
Of course, it affected not only our meetings at the Kingdom Hall, but also our circuit assemblies, regional conventions, and special conventions. So the governing body decided to cancel all live regional and special conventions for 2020. That led to a landmark convention program on JW.org that the entire Brotherhood enjoyed. That same week in March, we approved that a JW Broadcasting news release about be developed.
So here we have a rare occurrence, and that's when a governing body member, and I know I mentioned it earlier, but it seems like the big news happens with particular governing body members, so it does make sense that we get it from Stephen Lett here. But instead of saying the governing body approved, which we hear all the time, the governing body approved this, and the governing body did this, and the governing body did this. Now we hear we. Him as a member of the governing body, he just doesn't even mess around with the concept of saying, well, he doesn't even mess around with the idea of, well, the governing body did this. He just comes out and says, no, we did it. Yeah, we did it, which I think is pretty massive. And also, I wonder how the organization was affected by not having conventions. Because I am someone that thinks that they get a lot of revenue from conventions and assemblies and international conventions and the memorial. I think it is a good opportunity for Watchtower to make money. And I think that it probably hurt their revenue quite a bit. And I would be curious to kind of know how that necessarily affected them, or if people still donated online or something anyway. But of course, this is all speculation. We'll never actually know how it would affect, because we would need those specific numbers, which Watchtower has, but will never produce.
So interviews and scripts were prepared during that Gilead graduation weekend. And the program was recorded and released the following week. The governing body updates have been an important way for us to shepherd the entire organization during.
Well, once became more prevalent, we faced another challenge. The United States branch was struggling to get for those in the Bethel family who wanted them.
So in early April 2021, we called together a meeting. We had all the key individuals there from the various departments, and everyone was given an assignment. And within 2 weeks, we had enough to vaccinate everyone in the U.S. Bethel family who chose to be.
Well, about a week later, we sent a letter to all branches, encouraging them to investigate the availability of for special full-time servants. We were especially concerned about special full-time servants serving in lands where the government was not yet making available.
After that direction went out, we had a tremendous response from a number of branches who were able to obtain for special full-time servants who wanted to receive them. Several branches said that it had seemed impossible to get in their country at that moment, but they prayed about it, they followed the direction, and then either that same day or the very next day, Jehovah opened the doors, and suddenly they had.
So a rare time of Watchtower being diplomatic by them saying, for those that wanted to get them. By them, I'm talking about the thing that I had to bleep out because YouTube would take the video down. But we all know what we're talking about here. So I find it interesting that they decided to use some diplomacy randomly. They decided to actually, let's make sure we say for those that wanted them. I found that very interesting.
All of these events occurred rapidly. And even though it was difficult to make so many adjustments in such a short period of time, we could see Jehovah's hand in the governing body's decisions. Television, radio, video conferencing have all served our brothers well, which just goes to show that Jehovah was guiding the governing body as they made these decisions so early in the.
We've always appreciated the direction we received from the faithful slave, but at that unique time especially, it was so encouraging to see Jehovah use them to make these major decisions. And they made many that 1 week in March.
Although there have been many challenges and sad times during the, it's been amazing to see many positive developments. So many inactive ones have returned. So many Bible studies have been started.
We saw how Jehovah guided us through, decision by decision, step by step. And seeing how Jehovah led us through this situation has helped me to see that regardless of what is going to come up in the future, Jehovah is going to do the same thing.
Like scriptures say, we get our yeah, those times, but overall, when you're in Jehovah's arms, what's the worry?
You could say every one of the governing body's faith was strengthened as we got through this trial, and it's just a continuous thing of our faith being built up and how Jehovah is directing us, and He's preparing His people for life in that new world, the real life that's coming.
It's been a real privilege to see Jehovah's Spirit in action during this. It strengthened our faith to see Him use the governing body to provide scripturally based direction, keep the kingdom work going, and all the while showing respect for life. As a result, our trust in Jehovah's organization is stronger than ever before. And building this trust now is vital because Jehovah is preparing us for future events, including the Great Tribulation.
So let's keep all discussion of Pokemon cards off the table, and let's talk about something other than the Pokemon cards that maybe people were asked to purchase and own. Yeah, so not everyone maybe wanted to have Pokemon cards, but Watchtower said no, 100% of the Bethel family must have Pokemon cards. We'll put all of that to one side and focus in on this thing about Jehovah's direction. We see evidence of Jehovah's direction. Jehovah's guiding us. We see clear evidence that I think they mentioned it like 6 or 7 different times. How is this evidence of Jehovah's direction? If this is evidence of Jehovah's direction, wow, are the standards for declaring that something is being guided by God unimaginably low. You could have a situation where someone comes to your house to mow the grass every Friday. Every Friday they show up and they mow the grass. And there's a snowstorm. And they don't show up one week. And you say, wow, Jehovah directed them not to show up. That way they didn't endanger their lives. And then the next week they show up. And they have to rake a little bit more. And there's a few more leaves and stuff. But because of this, they anticipated there being more leaves, so they brought extra garbage cans, or they brought a trailer with them so they could dump the leaves in there. So then they scoop those up, and then you also count that as Jehovah's direction. You guys see where I'm going with this. No matter what happens, even if it's as mundane as scooping leaves or mowing grass or not showing up because it was snowing, they will absolutely claim it's evidence of God's direction. And that is because their standard is so low. They don't even have a reliable metric that they can base these opinions off of. They fly by the seat of their pants, kind of like I do on my channel. And they say these whoppers, these absolute whoppers of, well, yeah, it's God's direction. We shut down because the government said so, but that was God's direction. We went to Zoom because we had no other options. Well, we did have another option. We could use that program we developed. But no, that's not God's direction. Using Zoom it's so annoying. It's so unbelievably annoying that they can talk to witnesses in this way. And this whole thing has been very aggravating for me. But anyway, we won't make this a whole thing because we know people will, in the comments, will end up talking about Pokemon cards. And do not talk about Pokemon cards in the comments. You hear me? Don't do it. I mean, you can leave a comment, just don't talk about Pokemon cards.
Well, we take this opportunity to thank all of the brothers who work in the Coordinators Committee office for the hard work that they put forward during the. It was just amazing to see how many ways Jehovah has directed matters during these challenging times.
What an encouraging program. And that was just the first half. There's so much more to enjoy. We'll see you here next month for the rest of the program. But before we go, we'd like to meet our brothers and sisters in the Philippines in this month's video postcard. The Philippines is a tropical country in the western Pacific Ocean that's made up of more than 7,100 islands. Across those islands, you'll find an astonishing diversity of landscapes, from pristine beaches and lush farmlands to dramatic mountain ranges. There are also bustling cities, including the capital, Manila, one of the most densely populated cities in the world.
For all of my Tagalog-speaking followers, Salama, may magandang balita ako sa'yo. This video is almost over with.
The over 230,000 publishers living in the Philippines preach to a population of more than 109 million people. In 2021, 739,439 attended the memorial. That's more than 3 times the number of publishers. Let's travel to the southern part of the country, to one of the largest islands, Mindanao. Here, farmers grow staples like corn and rice, along with cacao, pomelo, and durian, a popular Asian fruit famous for its unusual, pungent smell. The southern tip of Mindanao is home to the 97 publishers in the Margus congregation. In this remote part of the country, the pandemic posed some unique challenges. Because of unreliable internet service, the congregation chose to schedule its meetings on Zoom at 3:30 a.m. Why so early? The internet signal is more stable during those early hours of the morning. The publishers may have missed out on a few hours of sleep, but they didn't miss any of the spiritual food being provided through the meetings. In other areas served by the congregation, there's no internet or cell service at all. So the brothers listen to meetings broadcast over radio. But those challenges haven't dampened their zeal, especially when it comes to sharing the good news with the indigenous population. Since 2019, the congregation has been hosting a Blaan language group. Blaan is an indigenous language spoken by about 125,000 people. The Blaan people are famous for their handicrafts and colorful native costumes. With several publications and videos now available in Blaan, native speakers can hear the truth in their own language. The 28 brothers and sisters of the Blaan group in the Margus congregation would like to send you their warm love and greetings. And please remember, dear brothers and sisters, we love you all very much. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
All right, so most Jehovah's Witnesses watching this will be like, oh man, I'm so encouraged. But I just, coming from the perspective of someone that makes videos, I was just thinking about how expensive this short little 2-minute montage that they made actually is in real world dollars. So I got the calculator out and I was making notes as I was watching it. So I'm just going to assume that 2 people from Daddy Watchtower from New York traveled to the Philippines. So from what I could tell, and that seemed reasonable enough, it would cost about $4,000 for 2 people to fly there round trip, about. Now, they have a drone that they're using. Now, this drone, I mean, that could be another $3,000, which it probably is, but at a bare minimum, at a bare bones minimum, we'll just call it $750. And I've already messed this thing up. Plus $750. Okay, then you have the man hours. I'm assuming that in order to get those shots, it took about 40 hours. And that's just like productivity man hours time. And I'm also going to include just the flight time. So you know when you're going somewhere, you also have an equal amount of time that you spend prepping, waiting around at the airport, getting picked up, and going to your next destination. It's almost equal to like the time you spend on the plane. But the time you spend on the plane and with layovers, so I am including that, seems to be, it depends on where they're going and where they're laying over, but about 40 hours of just flight time. And I'm assuming to do the actual footage, it's another 40 hours. So that's 40 hours for 2 people. Well, 80 hours for 2 people. So that's what, 400. Assuming that I'm just giving everyone $40 an hour when I'm factoring this in. So if that wasn't clear. So let's just go back because I've already messed up my calculations. So $4,000 for the flight plus $750 for the drone, plus another $6,400 for just the man hours it took to get there. Plus they had at least a camera. So we're just going to give another $1,000 for one camera, and we're also going to give another $1,000 for a lens, because if you notice, they were showing what was happening at 3 in the morning because the internet was more reliable then. Well, to get a lens that would capture the footage that they got in low light, honestly, it's going to be probably $2,000 to $4,000. But again, I'm trying to be generous here, so we'll give them another $1,000 for a lens. They had a shot where they went from like up to high. That requires a gimbal. So for a gimbal, we'll give you, just the one that I have is $350. So I'll just use that price point. Theirs is probably more expensive, but I'm just going off of what I have. So my gimbal's $350, so we'll go with theirs $350. Now you have just general travel from point A to point B. I'm going to say it's at least $2,000 because they have a lot of different shots of a lot of different people and a lot of different times and a lot of different places. So we'll just give another $2,000 just for travel. If I was going to edit that footage and come out with that finished product, I think it could take me, by the time I get all of it, probably 5 hours? So we'll just add in another $200 for whoever is editing this. And then you have to have software to edit. So another $300 for the software to edit. So in that little 2-minute stretch, Watchtower would have spent $16,000. I know ordinary witnesses are just sitting here watching this like, oh, how nice it is that we get to see what's going on over in the Philippines. But this is pretty generous and I think fairly realistic. And now the man hours aspect of it, I guess if you wanted to debate about that, you could debate about that. So even if we took that aspect out of it, it's still at least, if not more, than $10,000. But you have to include the man hours because these are people that could be doing something else and are making this video. So I think it's fairly reasonable. And $40 an hour for someone that's filming and editing this video, is that seems reasonable as well. So Watchtower is spending $16,000 to bring you this report, which says what? What did that video tell you? What did that instruct you? What sort of new light? How were you spiritually encouraged from that? Or was it just a propaganda piece? Was it just something to make you feel good? Because it didn't tell you anything. It didn't give you any new news that you couldn't get via a text or an email. So it's purely propaganda. Anyway, I didn't know really what to say at the end of that, and that was the only thing I was thinking, because they had so many of those drone shots. I'm like, this looks expensive. This looks really, well, how much would it cost? So in Wally's estimation, it would take about $16,000 to produce that short little segment of video. And I think that is absolutely insane because it's not functional. It's only there to be propaganda. Anyway, we have made it. Me and you, yes, you and me together forever. I would drop a dime, however the song goes. It feels good. All right, so we will get the second part of the annual meeting on the February broadcast. A quick shout out to everyone that has joined the Patreon. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. You are a real one. You are my friend, and I appreciate the support. It does help the channel grow and continue to function. And because of the growth we've been experiencing, I'm excited. I think we are going to hit our 10,000 subscriber minimum by the end of the year. We've already hit 4,000 right now, so that is super cool. Anyway, if you're still watching, I'm sure you're subscribed, but if not, do it. If you can't do it, make a fake account just to give me some love. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a blast. We will catch you next time for the second part of the 2021 annual meeting. Wicked stunt. I actually can, like, chug. I guess I could chug a beer, but I don't feel like drinking a whole beer. I mean, water's about... What if I do, like, a carbonated water? That's the same as, like, a beer, because it's carbonated, so no one can be like, whoa, it's just water, you didn't have the carbonation. Okay, give me 1 second. I just got to go to the garage and get a carbonated water. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. Oh, the battery's almost dead. Holy shit. Okay. Battery's almost dead, so we're going to have to speed run this. If this runs out, okay, so we'll put a timer right here. And if anyone thinks they can beat my chugging, again, it's La Croix, it's not actually beer, but please comment below and tell me what your time is. Okay, we're taking the scarf off. We're rolling up the sleeves. We're taking the hat off. We're going all in, baby. Man, I haven't done this in like probably like 3 years. Okay, here we go. Okay. Timer starts when it touches my lips. Here we go. I'm even taking the glasses off. We're going wacko mode. Done. Ah! Anyway, I don't know what the time says. If you can beat that time, make sure you comment down below. This is the worst wicked stunt of all time. Bye. Double peace signs.